Sup, lovers? Putting in time, living. Just going to share something I wrote. It's about money. It's about freedom. It's about sovereignty. And the importance of any one of those terms actually meaning something to you, to me, but to the one that uses it, as opposed to it being a vague concept of impossibility. What do you mean, Elliot? Well, money, freedom, sovereignty, life, love. These are all concepts that aren't concepts, but we position I'm gonna be romantic. We position anything romantic as conceptual, as opposed to actual or real, visceral. And how I know that we only conceptualize these terms, and I say we, speaking collectively, the collective we, because there's no one beside me, except I digress. They're used conceptually because it doesn't exist. Money is fictionalized, and it means something different to everybody. Freedom. Freedom is the only state of being. And by giving it a name, we thereby limit its possibilities. Basically, people only speak in terms of freedom by how they're not free. So, speaking of ways that they're free, opposing ways that they're not free, what I mean is that that whole spectrum is not free. Because freedom is our every state. And we're only not free when we try and speak of it. And sovereignty. First of all, sovereignty is like a literary word. And I mean that a little tongue in cheek. But really, it's like, I didn't grow up with my peer group using sovereignty as a means by which to describe one's own, I'm going to go and say self-righteousness. Like the best, most like divine heavenly way. Sovereignty was used only in terms to describe um, our, our royals or whatever. And that's really only describing the fiction of our royals. If a country is sovereign. But if a country is sovereign, among other countries that are sovereign, it has to like state its sovereignty, then what's it sovereign of? Canada. We're a sovereign nation. What does that mean in terms of you not of you being a nation of a world that's not sovereign in and of itself? So it's like you're a part of this planet Earth on the map. You're sovereign, but you're not really anything. You're like boundaries that like we made up. And everywhere, like not all nations are sovereign, or in action or in actuality versus like just calling it that word. So if the world isn't sovereign, it's like saying my mole is sovereign, you know. And my mole is sovereign, but that's because all of my all of mole of me is sovereign. See how it gets confusing? And it's not because I talk in fucking riddles. When you hear me talking in riddles, you're hearing the sound of the universe. Because that's its song. It's like clever and witty, which is why I can't really take credit for it. Because I only take cash. Oh. And now I think that's like a good little prelude for me to just read, because I'm always thinking about, or I'm always considering everything. And my name is Elliot, and I give a fuck about needless suffering, and doing everything that I can in my life to love and let my loving, the fruits of my loving, be less suffering in the world. It seems like I came to the right place at the right time, because there's so much stupid suffering that like it's not that hard really to alleviate much with little. And it's hard to understand, not because it's when we are simply divine and that truth is self-evident, it takes a lot of work to convince us of otherwise. Like a lot of work, a lot of time. And then even then it doesn't work. Because people like you and I are like, yo, it's not working. And we're not going to go anywhere until it works. I'm going to stay. All right. Nothing costs money. Everything causes, is caused by work. Work is equal by definition to energy, resources, time required to spend. In a realm of limitless ideas, work requires but one necessity: consensus. Consensus may be achieved in various ways. One moment. Pardon me. You really have to have a sense of humor on this planet. I was hanging out with a few friends. I think it was only yesterday. And I don't talk with other people as much as I used to. I dare say I'm like horribly out of practice. And by talking with people, I don't mean like small or even medium, but like earnest and like friendly, which is actually just the way I want to be talking all the time. It takes no work. And I'm out of practice speaking with other people that when it doesn't take a lot of work. I hear myself talk and I'm like, shut up, Elliot. Almost because like I'm excited in like a giddy kind of. I just have so much to say. And that feels good to be listened to. And we're talking, and there's moments where like I pause. It might sound like, and it sounds like in the conversations that we're more familiar with, like Annie, that really it's like you don't know what to say or no one knows what to say, or it's like let's fill that space with more noise and or just like, oh, it's awkward, no one's talking. When communicating is like thoughtful, and conversation doesn't need to be a steady stream of like ga 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 ga. What they were both students of mine, uh, and I took a yoga class, and it was very nice to see some really beautiful people I haven't seen in too long. And one of them, this young man, is especially one of my students. He, in that I mentored him in my the teacher training, and it was an opportunity to notice in our comfortable conversation, there's three of us, uh, the pausing that felt natural and the comfort thereof, as opposed to the awkwardness, because I could sense really peripherally in them a little like awkward feeling, like one of them should be talking or something like that. But for them, it was even peripheral. And with this young man, in like all of our little conversations, kind of growing up, as it were, over a year, a month, a day, that when we would speak, he would he would comfortably say, like, I need a moment, like, to think about how I'm going to say what I want to say, or like, okay, like, or like, let me stop and let me think about that, or anything. I love that about him, and being so out of practice speaking with other people, like, truly, or rather, I don't sound like speak truly, but in face to face in time, that it's quite natural for me when thinking through a curiosity, which is what I call conversation, t- to like pause and even be like at a kind of silence in my own mind, just to put things together. There's only so long you're going to go where things kind of align themselves predictably or most probabilistically. Eventually, you need to pause and, pivot or create or take some time to like create, because you're creating something really brand new. And that goes for moment to moment conversation. Otherwise, you're boring as shit and you don't have this problem because you're not paying attention. You know? And I say this because there's like a peripheral noticing on my part of when I, like, for instance, my mother just came in. So that's why I put on mute. Now, just hold a second. That, like, and then I actually had a moment where I was like, maybe I should just like stop this and like restart it, and then I was like, solid fuck that. I was sincere in what I said in the first place, and if I stop now, then that can be all that I said. And confession, when I hear, really at this point, the very few people that I mean three or four, so down really like a couple people that I listen to on this platform, it's really for the conversation and the friendliness, and the divine speaks through each of us to each other. And when they're silent, I love it, because it's still their voice. It's just quieter. Okay. Nothing costs money. Everything causes, and is caused by work. Work is equal by definition to energy, resources, time required to spend. In a realm of limitless ideas, work requires but one necessity: consensus. Consensus may be achieved in various ways, ultimately arriving in agreement. Agreement is achieved through communication, and this imperfection, or at least perception, is found in community. Community is as a reflection of shared values and reciprocal intentions, and this is love. Money, therefore, being a construction, is a means by which the process of the many may be subsumed by the few despite them. In an enslaved society, invent money as a means of representing a real exchange of value. Underline, like representing. The real exchange, uh, the real exchange, cause and cost are confused with the representation instead of the true. The cause and cost is now money. Once shared as value, the community. Sorry. I should probably just like turn up the lights before I do this, huh? Oh, fine. Wow, that makes such a big difference. Shit. The real exchange, cause and cost are confused with the representation instead of the true. Once shared as value, the community replaces its values with its representative, money. And this becomes equal in use. And this becomes equal in use to consensus. Thenceforth, the inventor of the money, which is an inherently meaningless construct, right? I don't mean meaningless in like the sassy way. I mean literally, like it. Money is like I put my money on before I go out the door. Like money could be shoes, right? It's a construct. What is it? Well, actually, and then my money is shoes. Anyways, I digress. I didn't write that, obviously. I should have. No. Thenceforth, the inventor of the money, which is an inherently meaningless construct, can use it to represent everything valued, which is also under their which can represent everything. It's like, wow, I really like my writing, but sometimes I really like my writing, but it's mostly for like, I don't know, the curls and the swirls, like for legibility. Why am I telling you this? I'm not even bothered by it. You're literally seeing me look down and like appreciate. Uh, I don't know, man. Just like the art of it. So basically, you can everything valued becomes under the influence. Uh, how much? Yeah, stop there. Okay, so cool. That's good. And then I'll go. Nothing actually costs money, and maybe the reason that I wrote this too is because I don't know. It's becoming more clear to me how stupid people are. I love you, and like because growing up, this costs that, this costs this costs that. Like it was always really apparent to me that like, okay, but like, what's it really cost? Like trees, uh, like fire. You know, like this sweatpants doesn't really cost money. It costs it's the materials and the knowledge and the process. Right? So all that could occur without money, right? Like there's no money in this. And there's no money in this. And yet everything costs and is valued and is judged and is exchanged by in terms of this thing called money. But money is nothing. Like, it's not a thing. So where does it come from? Well, fucking cares where it comes from. But if things don't actually cost money, then what do they cost? And that's what I said by work. It's like the divine kind of a scriptural way to express it, maybe. It's also like the thermodynamic, like physics kind of way to express it. Like creation in a closed system, what's it require? Like, is like anything, any movement, it's all work, energy exchange, really. Okay, so if things only cost work, then how do we get work done? Well, if work can be anything, then all work requires is consensus. Consensus of the materials, consensus of the need, the movement, the direction, the why. It's why work gets done. So basically, we just got to get everybody to agree. And like the materials too. And that's natural. It's considerate in like the environmentally pragmatic way and emotionally inclusive, which everything must be. You can't like escape that. You can only commandeer it and then abuse it. Money. Okay, consensus, agreement. How do we come to those things? Communication, right? Cells in my body, communicating, creating consensus that end up expressing themselves biologically as this guy and you too. Where does communication come from? Community. That's an easy one. Because people from anything in a different community that is regarded as not a part of the community, there exists no communication between. As soon as there's communication, those communicating parties are a kind of community. And any perspective, or rather any perception of like separation within communication is self-evidently deception and falsification of value. Okay, so now communication, community. What's community need? Or where's that come from? Shared values, shared intentions. That's it. Which again occur naturally and easily. Occur easily, most naturally. Any difficulty with shared values and shared intentions coming together, not just fucking amicably. That's like describing the sun as like hot. It's like, duh. And then like the sun's already doing that. Like that's okay. There's no challenge in people that like value the same things and have the same intentions in like creating, communicating, creating consensual agreement, and doing work together that expresses what does it express, Elliot? The fucking shared values and shared intentions. Hence, like, this is love. Notice there's no money in there. It's actually just a thing. It's actually just like life. But money as an invention, as like a fetter. See how it totally can like just interrupt all that. Here's his money, and I'm not even going to go into like monetary policy, but it's just that like what money's not a thing. But if you can convince a couple of villagers to every time they exchange, they're sharing every time they're gifting. Like you just go to one and be like, yo, if you really love them, instead of always like it's like a lot of work the way that you guys do this. Here, how about like you give them these like shiny things too, well, pearls, little shells, and you just give them to them like it's like a loot bag. Eventually, you've got all these people fucking exchanging these things like pogs. Remember pogs? And then give it like 50 years, kill a bunch of them, and then make those pogs exchangeable for other pogs, and then exchangeable and then the pogs kind of represent some kind of reputation, and then have those pogs start paying, like buying real things, because once you start killing them, there's like now they have to defend themselves, and now their neighbors might be someone that like they might have to like defend themselves against, because gifting, even in and of itself, is actually the monetary cultures that our true history comes from, and it's actually not that even that well hidden. And to take us out of gifting, you have to prey on you basically just have to prey on the have-nots by creating a false sense of have-not. It's like, look at that big house. Don't you want that big house? Your house is small. I know you want that big house. Here's all this money. If you take all this money and you go to this guy and give him the money for it, he will make you a big house. Obviously, the guy you're sending to is like your lackey, and you just build this whole fake infrastructure. And previous to this, the guy didn't even think twice about the size of his house. And the guy in the big house is looking at the guy with the little house, being like, I love that house, man. I wish that was my house. But not really, because if it really wanted to be his house, he'd be like, yo, want to switch houses? And then we just do that. But there's always going to be an honest representative of like the downtrodden, or like the weak, or the malefic, or the stupid, right? Like there's no judgment. The first dupe is a brave one, because there's no evil. It's just like peering into the unknown, into possibility. And only something that wasn't there before could come out of that, whether it's good or bad. And if you've got good values and good intents, then and enough time, then it will be better than it was, no matter what. Anyways, I hope that was helpful, or at least entertaining. I adore you. I love you. Bye.